Hey, thank you so much for watching, listening. I'm super excited to hang out with you. And of course, I want you to subscribe, right? Because we have amazing content and really cool guest interviews. So today, I get to introduce to you Robert Henderson. Thank you, Robert.
Yes, it's good to be
Super
with you.
fun to hang out. I like this because we get to have some exhale, chill behind the scenes.
That's right.
Right. So give a little bit of background because not everybody knows who you are.
Yeah, well, I mean, you mean they don't know me?
I know, right? You're famous.
I'm offended. No, in all honesty, I've been in ministry for 37, 38 years now. My wife and I have been married for 45 years this year. And we have 6 children, 6 biological children that are all grown. They're 41 down to 29, but we have 8 grandchildren now. And so we're tremendously blessed. I mean, God has just really put his hand upon us and been really, really good to us. But I transitioned out of pastoral ministry about 15 years ago, or maybe 16 now, and I began to travel. But now we do a lot of media stuff. We just do a lot of media stuff online, TV, different things, podcasts. I'm an author. I write, books. I mean, God's blessed me enough that we've got a lot of books that are bestsellers. So it's just been good that we're grateful that God gives us the blessing of being an influence.
Mm-hmm. That's totally cool. And I want to talk a little bit about writing, right? So you're an author. How many books have you written?
I have to count them. I think I'm right up about 20.
Yep.
That's in print, and there's a handful more that's already been written that's at the publishers, and then I'm under contract to write others. So I just write. I'm always writing. Yeah. There's always a project that I'm involved in writing.
Mm-hmm. Did you do a lot of writing when you were little?
No. In fact, I tell people, I said, if my high school English teacher knew that I was a best-selling author, she would think the world was about to end.
Mm-hmm. She'd roll over in her grave, maybe, right?
Yeah, because that was not what people would have envisioned me to be. But the truth is, down deep on the inside of me, from as far back as I can remember, I always knew I could do it. I always knew it. I don't know. It was just a part of the destiny, I think, that God had for me.
Mm-hmm. So have you always written?
When I was in high school and different things, I mean, we wrote, things that we were assigned to write. But I didn't really start writing until the latter years of being a pastor. And I just thought, I ought to try to do this. So I started trying to put stuff together. I remember, of course, one of the things I'm really known for is the Court of Heaven series. Yeah. So many books on the Courts of Heaven that I've written. But I started in what people don't know about, I would say 3-4 years before that book the first one came out. I sat down to start trying to write because I could see there was something legal in the nature of God. And I couldn't see it clearly enough. And so I just had to stop. I thought, I can't see it. I don't have enough understanding to be able to try to express, it in an intelligent way. That I tried to.
And you felt like it was an obstacle or hindrance?
Yeah, it wasn't ready. It wasn't ready in my understanding. It wasn't ready in my insight. And then when I had some encounters later on, and that's the way God's really dealt with me. Mm-hmm. God has always dealt with me. It's like there's a seed planted, and then it'll grow, and then it comes to fruition and to fruitfulness. And then I realized I had a hold of something in God way back then. I just couldn't see it clearly enough.
And when you say you couldn't see it clearly enough, do you find you struggle to put words into it?
Yes, really to explain it. Dr. Peter Wagner, he sat down at a table with me one time, and of course he's with the Lord now, and he's made this statement. He said, Robert, you and I have some of the same gifts. And I was shocked, and I said, well, what would that be? And he said, you're able to take the complex and make it simple. And when he said that, it went off. I said, that's exactly right. My mind operates in a certain way that whenever I see something that's complex, it's literally like my mind just starts breaking it down until I can give it in, bite-sized understanding until people can get a hold of it.
Mm-hmm. So like you deconstruct.
I think so. Absolutely.
And so you take a tiramisu and
that's right.
Take out the little pieces and
take
parts.
It all out.
And then this is unpacking it.
Yeah. The whole writing process, I know different people do it different ways. People will say to me, they'll say, could you help me know how to write? And I said, well, I'll give it a shot. But I said, you probably won't work for you. I said, because what I do, I write like I preach. I preach very prophetically in the sense of I do have an idea of where I'm going. I've got notes. I'm prepared, but I always let the Holy Spirit have the liberty to redirect. And I said, when I write, I do the same thing. And I said, what happens is that I'll put things in writing that I've never actually said in person. And then later I'll say it in person because that's just kind of the way I process and I operate.
Mm-hmm. So when you like the actual mechanics of you writing, what does that look like for you?
Well, of course, whenever I have a subject, like a lot of the books I have written and I'm under contract to write, I have a subject. And usually the reason they've come to me and said, can you write something on that is because they've heard me teach it somewhere. And so what's happened is I have developed, through the process of teaching, I've developed thoughts on that. Well, my mind works in such a way that it starts, well, I could do this chapter, I could do this chapter, I could do this chapter, I could do this chapter. And I can start seeing how to break it down in bite-sized nuggets. For instance, they wanted me to write a book on tongues. When I said yes, my wife told me later, she said, I thought, how are you going to write a whole book on tongues? How are you going to do that? And I said, well, here's the way I do it. Yeah, just tongues itself would be probably pretty difficult to write a full-fledged 60,000 word book on tongues.
Right.
But if you dovetail into the person of the Holy Spirit,
right,
and you dovetail into tongues being a part of the grace giftings of God. And I mean, you just start dovetailing into different areas that connect. They may not be exactly that, but they connect. Then it starts expanding the subject. And so that's one of the things I do that helps me put things in writing. I keep saying on paper, but we don't put it on paper, put it on the computer. To put it in writing to help express, what I feel like God's actually saying.
So you're going to write a book and you're going to sit down and you start to write. Do you sit like at a coffee shop? Do you sit like in your house? Where do you do that?
Well, some of my books I've actually written on airplanes. I don't do that anymore. But in the early days, it'd be on these long flights, different places, and I would just make myself because I didn't want to do it. I'd rather have turned the movie on.
Sure.
But I would make myself. So I'd write these books on airplanes. But I really can't do that anymore. It's just too much. And so what I try to do is I try to get into as much of an isolated place as I can, free from distraction. Because for me, writing a book is really an intense endeavor. It takes a lot of focus. When I wrote the first book on the courts of heaven, the very first one, Operating in the Courts of Heaven, which has been like 8-9 years ago now, 2013. Yeah, about 9 now. When I wrote that book over a very long period of time. I knew what I wanted to put in it, but I just didn't have time to write it, but travel and everything. So I would have to go back and reread what I had written, make sure I wasn't repeating myself again.
So long period of time, like 4 months, 6 months?
Oh, it's probably, at least 6 months, at least 6 months, which is a long time for me because I can normally, because I have it up here, I can normally, if I just sat down and write, I can write a book in a month's time. I can, because if I write every day, and we were talking about earlier, I can write 3,000 to 5,000 words a day. And so if I sat down and you do that over a month's period, you've got a 50,000 to 60,000 word book. Easy with, even having some time, where you're not writing. So a month I can actually do that. But when I did that first book, it was like, I couldn't even remember what I put in it. And so I had to go back and reread and all that kind of thing.
And that gets tedious and laborious.
It does.
So do you write and then edit, or do you write, edit, write, edit, write, edit?
I probably write and then edit. I write, but what I tend to do is I'll write something and then I'll reread it. And so I am, changing this here and there, but I'm writing and and I read it and then I write and change the little thing and then read it again and I get it, to where I want it to be. Now, I then depend on the publishers to do, you know, a lot of the editing.
Yeah.
Whenever I turn a book in, it's like raw.
Mm-hmm.
And my publishers are good, and they say,
Yeah.
great, we can work with it.
Yeah.
And so I turn it in, and it's just, you know, raw. And some publishers are more intense in their editing process
Sure.
than others.
Sure.
So like there's a certain publisher, when I turn a book into them, but when I see it again, it's been fully edited. They didn't ask me what I thought or anything like that. They just said,
no,
this is what we've done with it.
What we're doing. Yeah.
So,
I gotcha.
yeah.
Do you like to read?
I do like to read. I probably don't read as much as I should. Reading is very relaxing for me. And so I do like to read.
What do you like to read?
Well, you know, somebody would say, well, you know, you're probably like this big spiritual guy, but I'm not.
Yeah.
I mean, I do, you know, I live my life doing spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
So whenever I read, I'm probably going to read like a crime novel or
James
a mystery
Patton.
Or something like that.
Who are authors you like to read? What makes you help you relax?
Yeah, let me think here. I'm trying to remember the one that I just kind of got distracted, so I went back to it. What is the name of that? I can't even remember the name of the author. It's like the guys that write these mysteries, you know, and a murder has occurred and they're trying to figure it out and all that. So I can't even remember that at this point, some of those, but that's what I would do a lot of times on the planes. Whenever I'm flying so much, I would just read this, you know, thing about something that's happened and the characters developing and all that.
Do you read any like Agatha Christie? That's mystery.
It would be something like that, but not her in particular.
Right.
I am just trying.
There's that
to
guy
remember.
like James Clavell. He's the one that did all the Hunt for Red October and all that. Do you read any
those
of those?
kind of things. Those kind of things.
Yep.
Yes, absolutely. Because whenever I read, I'm looking to just
unplug from all the regular stuff.
I remember hearing years ago that Oral Roberts, the way he relaxed was reading Western novels. That was what he did.
Zane Grey or something.
Yes. He would just read novels about Western settings and all that. I remember years ago hearing a guy make this statement. He said, and I believe this, he said, we're spirit, soul, and body. He said, you have to refresh your spirit, but you also have to refresh your soul. And you have to refresh your body. And he said, we're not real good sometimes at refreshing our soul. He said, for instance, the Bible talks about a warped bow that won't shoot straight. It's in Psalms. A bow will warp because it's never unstrung. If you never unstring a bow, in those days, it'll warp and it won't shoot straight. And I'm telling you, we probably aren't real good at unstringing the bow in our life and getting refreshing into our soul. So that's some of the things I do to, you know, just kind of relax. And I'm not real good at it. I'm a pretty high intensive fella. And so I could just go and go and go. But what happens is I start getting tired. And then not just physically tired, emotionally tired and mentally tired. And that's when the enemy can come in.
Yep. And you're kind of like, man, I just have to reset.
That's right.
Kind of refresh, rejuvenate.
I actually decided I was going to start playing golf because we live in a situation in Texas where I can play golf on a pretty regular basis if I want to. Well, I never had. I lived on a golf course, in all honesty, and in a year's time only played 5 times. Only played 5 times. And I'm not a good golfer. But I compete against myself. I don't compete against anybody else. It's against myself. And so I finally told my wife, I said, you know, I think I'm going to start playing golf. I said, I'm going to try to schedule in a couple of times, since we live here, a couple of times a week. And that really helped me. And I thought I can actually say to somebody when they would ask me, well, what hobbies do you have? Because they would ask me and I could never give them an answer.
Right.
I would say, hobby, I write books.
Yeah, that's my hobby, right.
And now I can actually say, I play golf.
Yeah.
So,
And do you find when you play golf that you have fresh energy?
I do. It just helps to get out in another setting, be outside, you know, focused on something else other than what I do all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for what I do. I'm so honored that the Lord has let me do what I do, because I'm thinking I wouldn't have let me do it. But I'm so grateful. But it does help whenever I find out, okay, I can just for these 3-4 hours,
Yeah.
get focused on something else.
Yep.
And you can just feel like a refreshing come to your, even to your soulless realm.
And you kind of see things in new ways too.
Yes.
It's like, that's a fresh start, a new beginning. I love
It's
it.
true.
Thanks so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Of course, hit the notification bell right there. Keep you posted when we put up new content. Here's your question. I want you to answer this question in the comments. Enter one of these. What do you like to read for fiction? And the other question, or what is your hobby? What do you like to do to kind of rejuvenate? So those are the questions for you to answer. And of course, I have an amazing joke, right? You're going to love these jokes. No, just one, maybe. Light travels faster than sound, and that's why some people appear bright until you hear them speak. That's why I should be like more quiet. Thanks again. We're totally stoked that you're here. Thanks.